Hello and welcome to another edition of Community Close-Up. Today's program is going to be focusing on the Children's Home Society of Minnesota and mainly on the Crisis Nursery Center. Today I have with me two very special guests, Judy Russell on my far left and Judy Burns next to me here. And they are, well, why don't I let you tell the people at home what your roles are in this.
I'm the program director of the Crisis Nurseries program.
And I'm the coordinator of volunteer services for that program.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you both for coming today. What is the Children's Home Society of Minnesota, and what is the Crisis Nurseries program you have?
Well, Children's Home Society is a 98-year-old agency. It's a nonprofit, philanthropic agency that was originally set up for placement of orphans, and people still consider it basically an adoption agency, but it truly has expanded into many other family and child care services. It's a family and child care service agency. It has one of the largest nonprofit daycare systems in Minnesota. Our program in particular is the newest program at Children's Home Society, and we started in 1985. And the Crisis Nursery is a new concept, relatively speaking, in social service sectors. The idea is a prevention of abuse and neglect program. And the first Crisis Nursery was started in 1972 in Denver. And Minneapolis then started a Crisis Nursery in 1983. And the idea is to give shelter care to children in families who are experiencing such extreme stress that neglect or abuse might occur. It's a very simple and direct solution, feeling that if there's immediate relief for the families, that the abuse will not occur. That's what the Crisis Nursery's main goal is. The secondary goal is really to give counseling and guidance to those families also. So we do care for the children, but we do also spend time helping the families understand what is the problem.
Judy, who is eligible for using the Crisis Nurseries?
Well, anyone who lives in the three-county area that we serve, Ramsey, Washington, and Dakota County, and who is experiencing real stress is eligible to come to Crisis Nurseries and ask for help.
How do you feel your program has succeeded this far, and do you feel it has been successful?
Yes, we feel that it has been successful. Every child that is taken out of a situation of abuse or neglect, we consider a success. It has saved that child at least an injury at that time. That's a very short-term goal. Our goal is a little longer term, in that when we first looked into the meaning of crisis, crisis can mean a breakdown, but it can also mean a breakthrough for people. So if at times of crisis someone is able to openly share that problem, we are very hopeful that they can reach some longer-term solutions. Many of the families have given us follow-up information on what it has meant to them at that time to have some place to go, but how that in itself has changed the course of events for their family.
How do you find people come to Crisis Nurseries? How do they find out about it?
Well, through programs like this. Number one, when the program was first started in December of 1985, there was a great deal of media publicity about the program. I think the concept of child abuse is still so frightening to people that it's very difficult for them to reach out for help at that time of their life. And one of the things that our program hopes to do also is to make the public aware that there are programs that can help. We have sent flyers and brochures to other psychologists, other social service agencies. Occasionally a story has been run in the newspaper, and our program is getting to the point now that word of mouth, one family is telling another family about our service.
Do you feel that the people who have used your service, do you feel that they have benefited? Has it made a difference in their situation, and how does it make a difference for them?
Well, we certainly believe so. We have gotten a lot of letters, thank you letters back from clients. many of the clients have been thoughtful enough to call back, and we care for the children for 72 hours in a private home or in a daycare for 10 days. During those 3 or 10 days, we remain in contact with the family to say what has happened, how has this been helpful to you, what might we do to be more helpful. Feedback from the clients, and also I would add feedback from other professional agencies.
Sure.
Very often a psychologist will call and say, this has made a difference, this is what we're dealing with now, your insights were helpful. So we have constant feedback from the community at large.
With being a nonprofit agency, how do you go about running your crisis nurseries?
Well, that's a difficult problem that we have from year to year. Interestingly enough, when the Crisis Nurseries was founded, a task force of 26 citizens and agencies of St. Paul came together, and most of the major agencies were represented: Wilder Child Guidance, Jewish Family Services, Catholic Charities, Lutheran Social Services. And they had a task force studying the need. Was there a need for such a program? They determined that there was. Then they chose a rather different model. The other crisis nurseries that we are aware of in metropolitan areas all use residential settings. I call them sleepover daycares, where they have a building in the middle of a city, usually on a bus line. The families bring their children there. The St. Paul group felt that the children might be better served in private homes. And I think they were very foresightful in spelling out 2 reasons. Number one, they felt that the children would really benefit by a home environment where they would have the same caregivers 24 hours a day, and they would see perhaps a family style of living that was different from their own. That was one reason they chose the family model. The other reason was they were sincere in their belief that by bringing the community into participation, by making them part of the team effort, the community at large would become aware of the many issues of child abuse and neglect that are in our society today, and would become involved in supplying an answer as well as in the ripple effect, their opinions going forth into the community. And I think that has really been true. Now, this group of citizenry had originally hoped that this program might be run by the county, the Department of Human Services. But they were not able to undertake that task at this time. So Children's Home Society raised through many donations and contributions of the public, various foundations, and a seed grant from United Way. United Way gave the seed grant for the program, and at this time our program is heavily dependent on United Way. We do have some reimbursement from the county. At this point we don't have any government funds, but we still solicit and are in need of contributions from individuals and corporations.
That's how it came about, but on the everyday basis, how does it operate? You need volunteers. Tell me about the number of volunteers that you already have and how you come about getting them.
Well, perhaps I can answer that, Judy. Crisis Nurseries really is a volunteer program. It's the original task force was a volunteer task force. And of course, Children's Home Society itself is operated by a volunteer board of directors. So volunteerism is part of the program from the very beginning. Judy mentioned the effect of having many people involved and what effect that has in terms of educating our community. We see that as a real advantage by having the volunteer component. In terms of the day-to-day operation, Crisis Nurseries has a very limited professional staff and relies very heavily on volunteers to perform many of the tasks needed to get service to families. Certainly the people who provide the 72 hours of care in their own homes are what we call our volunteer crisis parents. And we also have a network of volunteers called Crisis Assistants. These are people who operate as a case aide, if you will. They work directly with the social worker. They do things like helping us to get the family to the agency in the first place, working directly with the children and doing some observations of them while the parents are in counseling. And oftentimes they are the ones who help us with getting the children placed in our volunteer homes. There's another network of volunteers who coordinate all the clothing and supplies that are needed for crisis nurseries on a day-to-day basis.
These volunteers, do they come from all over, or do you find that they come from the immediate area around the center?
Well, our volunteers are a very diverse group. They come from all over the metropolitan area. They range in age probably from about 20 to 72 or 3 years of age. They are men and women. Most of them are professional people or people who do work full-time, but feel that this is an important program and they want to be involved. And so they donate some of their valuable free time to serving crisis nurseries.
We were fortunate to meet a couple of these volunteers, and I'd like you to meet them now. So let's take a look at this clip. What do you think attracted you to becoming a volunteer here at this center?
I live and both live and work in St. Anthony Park here, and so I walk by Crisis Nurse or Children's Home Society on my way to work, and we have a 2-year-old son who's very healthy and happy. Partly because of my Christian faith, I feel like it's a chance for me to give some back for the wonderful things that I've had in my life. I'm very fortunate to have such a wonderful little boy, and it hurts me to think about other kids not being as well taken care of. So this is a chance for me to give some back to the community. What I like about this program is that it's mainly about child abuse prevention. So rather than fixing things after they're broken, we're hopefully avoiding some of the problems. So that I feel good about. Another thing is I just have a good time playing with the kids. My position is mainly to provide transportation and childcare. So I get to play and talk with all these fun little kids, and that's a pretty nice job. For me personally, since my job is mainly childcare and transportation, I just have gotten to be friends with some of the kids that I've taken care of. One little girl in particular, as I was leaving, I had just brought her in to be picked up by her mother. I was walking out the door and I hear her yelling and running down the hall. She runs down the hall, throws her arms around my neck, and gave me a big squeeze, and that was worth $1 million to me.
Is it easy for people like yourselves and others who might want to become a volunteer, is it easy for them to come in and say, I'd like to be a volunteer, how can I help?
Oh, I think it's very easy. The staff is willing to help train you, and we are trained. I mean, you have to go through a certain training program to know that you are willing to do this and what the situation you may encounter with this. But I think it's easy, and I think it's certainly enjoyable and beneficial.
Right. Your position here as a volunteer, what are the benefits to you and some of the rewards that you have gotten since becoming a volunteer?
Knowing that you're helping a family, helping someone through a difficult period of time, helping a parent, helping a child, maybe preventing abuse, knowing that your time is being spent to help. And then I also enjoy the fact that I have some contact with the staff here, the professional staff, and that's interesting. And then I think that maybe I'm able to free them from some of this type of responsibility, and they can spend their time more in counseling and areas where they're trained, where I'm not. But I feel that when I'm called, and I think my time is valuable to me, and so as a volunteer, I want to feel that I'm really being a help. And when I'm called, I know I'm going to be doing something, and it's going to be helpful to someone. You know, it's been very pleasant for me. It's rewarding in that it's something that I feel that I can do and feel a sense of accomplishment. So as long as Crisis Nursery needs me, I would like to be able to help out.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that was a couple of the volunteers for the Crisis Nursery Centers, and you can tell that they put a lot of time and effort and really are dedicated to helping this program be a success. What type of situations, crisis situations, do you come up against on a daily situation, every day? What do you see happening out there?
I don't have a pat answer for that. I guess after being with the program since almost its beginning, we are still finding unusual reasons for people to need our service. Anything can be the straw that broke the camel's back. Very often people will call and not know exactly why it was this day they called. They may have heard about us been aware of us for the last year. But something happened this particular day. Some of the most obvious concrete reasons are issues of power struggles or poor parental expectations of children. Sometimes children might be hyperactive or have special needs. They places extra stress on their parents. Sometimes it has to do with the breakup of a marriage or a relationship, the loss of a mate, whether it's through death or leaving, divorce, separation. That often is a primary reason. Sometimes it's the birth of a new child or a sickness in a family. Maybe a mother needs to be hospitalized. A father has a job where he needs to be working 10 hours a day, has no other family members capable of caring for the children. Or maybe a child needs to be hospitalized, and that's placing a really special stress on the other family. Sometimes, especially in the winter, we have housing problems, no heat, no hot water, eviction, a need to move. It's very difficult, I think, for a lot of the public to realize how difficult it is to find a new apartment when the weather's 20 below zero. You need to do it by bus and you have 2 young children. That's a very difficult task. Sometimes it's loss of a job, financial stress. And sometimes it's very subtle, small things that accumulate over a period of time.
The crisis doesn't necessarily have to be a negative one then. It could be something where they just need a break to get something accomplished that is positive, like looking for a job or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be of a negative nature then.
No, actually, we would hope that, as I said, a crisis can also mean a breakthrough. And sometimes this relief of caring for the child will allow that parent to accomplish very specific certain steps. And it has for some of our families. It has allowed them to find a job, to get into counseling for the first time. On other cases, there might not be such a positive reason. And very often when people call, it's really hard for them to verbalize for the first time over the phone to a stranger what really is happening. But that's one thing we do try to do, is sit down with people and help them sort through. I don't know if you've ever been extraordinarily tense, overwhelmed, or anxious, but you often don't think real well at those times. And sometimes just having someone clearly go through things with you helps put things in perspective.
Do you have a lot of people who come back after maybe the first time they've used the crisis nurseries? Do you have a lot of repeat clients?
I'm never exactly sure what that means to people in general. We have had about 40%, I think, of our clients use us more than once. Now, that could be someone we have not seen for 2.5 years come back. That's considered a repeat client. Very often, people are in a very difficult situation. 3 days, we know, does not cure that situation. Sometimes they may struggle for 6 or 9 months and need more help during that time, and then be able to get on their feet again. And we will help them a second time if they need it.
Did you want to talk about
Well,
this?
I'm just going to add one thought to that. Oftentimes when clients come back to us, I think that's a good sign. It shows that we have been a valuable help to them. One thing that crisis nurseries can do is help families who, when they're experiencing that kind of stress and feeling that sense of aloneness and isolation that often comes from that and not knowing where to turn, we're a positive place for them to turn. If they have a good relationship with our program, they're going to want to come back when they feel that same sense of isolation. The fact that we have so many people from the community involved in crisis nurseries says something to our clients, I feel. It tells them that though they may not know the names of all those people out there who care, those people are willing to donate time and effort to be there for them when the crisis occurs. And that's a very comforting feeling for them.
Could one of you introduce the person that we're going to meet next, Fred Ever? Maybe give a little background on why he came to use the crisis nurseries.
Well, I think Fred is a special client in that he really, I think, worked very hard to understand what had been problematic for him for some time before he came to us. And when he needed our help, he had a pretty good awareness of what was happening in his life, and was, I think, special in a sense that he no longer felt a great sense of shame in asking for help. So
Right.
many people who call us really feel they should do it all themselves. If they were better this, if they were better that, they'd be able to manage. All of us need help at
Right.
some times in some ways or other. And Fred understood that. He'd had some counseling, and he was able to say, not totally nonchalantly, but he was able to say, I need help at this time.
Okay.
He was having some problems with jobs, some relationship discord, and he also was having some other problems in his
Right.
life at that
Okay.
time.
Why don't we take a look at Fred and find out a little bit more about why he came to use crisis nurseries.
I was extremely depressed. I had some things that had happened in my life, and they had gotten me close to my breaking point. And I was real fearful because I didn't know how I was going to be reacting to things, and I could already see that I was real short and,
Right.
and so on. And I was afraid that I might somehow do something to my daughter in this sort of temporary state. So I had been calling around trying to find someone to just take her for a day or two so I could take some time to get me
Right.
back together. And then someone told me about the Children's Home Society and the service they had. So I contacted here, and they were real good. They had me come in and said, yeah, we can see how you're in trouble right now. And the feelings were that, I didn't want to hurt my daughter. There's no place that I knew of to turn to, and fortunately I found them here.
Have you recommended this service to other people? Do you see other people in need and say, hey, you can get help here, and go do that?
Yes, I have. I don't remember specifics, but
Right.
I know, it seems to me I can remember at least 3 other occasions where I've talked to someone and they've said, gee, I don't know what to do. And I've said, I know a place that can watch your child, so that you can have time to get yourself straight again, They've been just extremely distraught like I was. And it can happen to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
And for all sorts of reasons. So doesn't mean that you're crazy or anything else.
Right.
Maybe none of us are crazy, but literally, there's times when the stresses get too much, you're too close to your edge where you're going to go over. And I think it's the smarter thing is to seek help rather
Right.
than to go over and do something that you'll be sorry for the rest of your life.
How has this service helped you? What kind of changes have you seen take place in yourself and your dealings with your daughter?
I've grown up, quite literally. I suppose it's not, I can't really say for one specific group, but because of the help that I've gotten through my friends and several sources, including Children's Home Society, I have been able to grow up and become a better and more responsible person, to learn how to deal with things before they overwhelm me. And it doesn't always work, but I know that I do it a lot better than I ever did before. To seek help, period.
Right.
As opposed to, I used to just say, no, I'll do it myself, I don't need help. The truth is that I do sometimes.
Right. Right.
If nothing else, someone with an ear that can listen. And I guess through lots of places, including here, I've been able to learn that so that I can be a whole person and take care of my daughter.
Right. Any words to people who might watch this program who may need some assistance, who have been struggling in their family life right now? What 1 or 2 things would you tell them?
Don't be afraid to reach out. It's a natural thing to be afraid. And it's hard many times to say, it's not working. I'm not able to do this. I should be able to do this, but I'm not. And sometimes it's just not true. Sometimes there's too many things on home plate all at the same time, and you just can't deal with them all. You've got to take a couple of them out of the picture, then you can deal with what's there and pull the other ones back and deal with them. But if there's too much there at the same time, it's all going to fall apart. It's just going to be that way. So if you remove some of it, deal with the rest, and then go back to the other when you can. And there's no shame in that. In fact, I think that's the smartest thing a person can do, is to get it down to the point of where you can deal with it, and then deal with the rest later. It's individual as to which things you have to. But, there's no shame in that.
No.
I would have been more ashamed had I not come here, had I maybe beaten Marie, hurt her in some way, had the county take her away from me or something because I'd abused her. That's shame. This wasn't shame.
I'd like to find out a little bit more about the shelter homes themselves, how you go about finding these homes, and who benefits. What are the benefits of having the family take the children in, and what are the benefits for the children that are brought to the homes?
Oh, the homes. They're a very special group of people, too. How do we find homes? First of all, I'd like to say that we call our homes crisis shelter homes because
Okay.
the idea of foster care sometimes has negative connotations to the public. But I would like to say that homes, foster homes, crisis shelter homes, are becoming more and more difficult to find for every program. And there are a lot of programs that need people to care for children in their home. So most of them do a certain amount of advertising. We have spoken at many church groups. We have run ads in the Sunday paper. We've had some people call from word of mouth, knowing
Right.
another one of our families. For the general public, I'd like to say anybody who has an idea that they would like to care for children in their home, whether it's our program or a different program, I think that the opportunity and what they need, they can find. Our program is a little different. For instance, the county needs people to have children ongoing, 24 hours a day, maybe 30 days out of the month,
Right.
6 months in a row. There are other programs who care more specifically for infants. We have been very fortunate to find people who are able to donate to us a minimum block of time of 4 days. Our homes have children in their home once or twice a month for 3 days at a time. So the children are not there, every
Right.
single day. And that gives them some flexibility. They have control over when those blocks of times
Sure.
will be. And that has been a benefit to homes. A lot of our homes have given us feedback on that they really have come to the point in their life where they want to really do some hands-on things, something that really seems to make a difference. And this seems to fit them. The benefit to the home, I would say, from speaking with our other homes, is that it is a fulfilling experience to feel that you are being of such vital help to other human
Right.
beings in your community. I think that it is also one of the only programs that I know that the whole family can volunteer
Right.
in. The children are involved. You can do it from your own home. And a lot of people have said to us that it really has been a positive benefit to their children. Their children have been able to experience different people of different cultures, different ethnicities, and that's been a benefit to them also. To the children that come into the home, it's usually almost like a vacation for
Right.
them. The homes generally set aside this time, and it's kind of a special time that they're going to devote to the care of the children who are viewed as guests in their home.
Right.
And that's how it's presented to them, that you will be a guest in Donnie and John's home. So I think it's a good experience for everyone involved.
Well,
Public relations is very important to our ability to create or to recruit new homes, as well as being able to tell the story of crisis nurseries to those clients who might need it. So opportunities like you're giving us, Judy, to tell our story about crisis nurseries it helps us to reach those people in our community who feel they can give some time to a program like this. I find that volunteers nowadays are really concerned about when they donate time, about using that time being very important and being time when they are involved in direct service, when they can do something that will really make a difference. And that's something that volunteering with crisis nurseries can do.
For myself, I've learned so much about crisis nurseries since initially starting this program up, and seeing and talking with the volunteers and the people you're about to meet who run one of the shelter homes, John and Donnie Hayes. And just, they are really special people that come out to help, and over and over again they say they just get a real rewarding feeling from the whole experience. And right now I'd like you to meet John and Donnie Hayes, who offer one of the, open their homes to some of the children that come through crisis nurseries. Was it a tough decision on your part to do it, as far as knowing that it would take time and commitment, and how much time does it take?
Well, it takes 3 days a month is all, which is not a lot of time, I think, for anybody. We both have very busy, hectic schedules, and I think anybody can find 3 days a month to do it. It was a tough decision in the fact that we both had to decide. It couldn't be just me. You know, I came to him and talked to him about it. It was something we mutually decided, and I think you both have to be equally committed to do it and want to do it, just have the desire to do it.
Do you have a choice over the kids you get, or are you informed about who you're going to get, and what are the ages that can come to a shelter home?
What's the top age?
8.
I thought it was 10. Okay, 8. Yeah.
8 is the oldest?
Is the oldest. You don't have a choice. You take whatever kids need your help at that given time.
What have been the situations or reactions you've gotten from the kids that have come here in the past to you and to coming into your home?
When they first get here, they're a little scared. After that, they tend to settle down, and by the time they leave, sometimes they don't want to leave. You know.
How do you think it's affected Josh? And I'll ask him that too, but how do you think it's affected
I think it's
him?
been a real positive experience. He's an only child and obviously has lots of things and gets lots and lots of attention. And I think it's been a real positive experience for him.
For parents who might be watching this who are having difficulties, how can you relieve the stress of thinking that their kids are in somebody's home that you don't know?
Well, I think letting them know that I don't think anyone's going to volunteer that doesn't want to. It is strictly volunteer. And the fact that they can call, you know, the parents call. I have mothers call me sometimes 5-6 times a day, and I let them know that's just fine, you know. I let the children talk to them. I have never had any difficulty with that as far as crying afterwards. They just feel real good that mom cares and she's called them. And I welcome those calls and let them know. And I think that I think were I in that situation, I'd feel real good. I mean, it'd be real hard, very hard to let your son go, but if you're getting in a situation where you're going to be perhaps abusive or neglective, to know that there's help out there, your child ought to be your #1 priority, you know, and to seek that help.
Why don't you tell us how the crisis nurseries are used from the beginning, when someone initially realizes that they need help?
Okay. I think the most important first statement is that our program is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And very often at that point I say 365 days a week, because sometimes it seems like that. We have a small staff. But for anyone who feels the need to use our service, we can always be gotten a hold of. We get a great many calls of people who I call informational calls as well. And that's a side benefit, I think, that wasn't really understood when the program started. A lot of people will call and want to know, at bedtime we get a lot of calls. People are under stress. The children won't go to bed. The child is laying on the floor kicking and screaming, and I'll say, well, this must be a 2-year-old, and then people think that I'm brilliant because I can understand that a 2-year-old is having tantrums. So we might talk to that person for half an hour, during which time the children fall asleep. And the mother will say, oh, I'm so happy just to have talked to another human being. Those are services that we give where people don't actually come in. Very often people will call and talk to us once or twice before they decide if they think they can trust us enough
Right.
to bring their children into care. So we receive a certain amount of phone calls that do not result into children coming into our care. Sometimes we can provide phone counseling, education, or referral to clients. But when we feel that a client really might need our service, and we have spoken to that person on the phone long enough to determine what the situation is, explain our program to
Right.
them. Once it's decided that that person needs to come in, then we need to make arrangements to get together. Some people have cars and they will come to Children's Home Society. We like to use our office as a central base because we supply all the clothing. We supply the diapers and the formula, and we're very strict about car seat compliance. So we have all those
Right.
things centrally located. If the family can bring theirself in by bus or by car, by a friend, that's wonderful. But sometimes the logistics of this program get very, very difficult because we cover Ramsey, Washington, Dakota County. And at one time it did happen. We had a client all the way from Lakeville, 55 miles south, in a home in the northern end of Shoreville. So that's where, once we determine that the client needs to come in, at what time we'll get together, which of our services, the daycare component or the home, is best, perhaps that family cannot come in. It is possible then for the social worker and one of our volunteer assistants to go to that family's home if they're sick, or maybe the mother's in the hospital. That's when we would call an assistant to come in and help us. And that assistant might go with the social worker to the home, or they might pick up that whole family and bring them into the
Right.
crisis nurseries. And then we have a time where the social worker will go through information that we need to care for that child properly for 3 days. We try to get a good assessment of each child. Are they afraid of dogs?
Right.
Are they used to taking a bath, or do they prefer a shower? How do they sleep at night? Whom do they sleep with? During the time that we're getting the information and trying to help the family decide how they can use the next 3 days to their best benefit, our crisis assistant will be caring for the children in the playroom. When all that is done, which takes sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 hours, then the child needs to be gotten to the shelter home. The family may come in and pick up the child from us. Very often the family needs to be gotten to their home.
Right.
If it's in the evening and the bus isn't running, we may need 2 different people going in 2 different directions. We really have to work as a team. You know,
Right.
we really see all the volunteer positions and the staff as a team. And without one part of that team, we just don't
Right.
accomplish anything. And then we will continue to maintain contact with that family for the next 3 days. And then the shelter home will care for the children, or our daycare will care for the children. And when it's time for them to be reunited, we may need the assistance again
Right.
of a volunteer.
When you do the whole process, have you ever had times when you have been short volunteers or anything like that arise?
Yes, we have had times when we have been short, but I have to say that we have a very congenial group of volunteers. They're very responsible. If someone cannot take their shift, they almost always call and tell us ahead of
Right.
time. Then Judy gets on the phone and tries to find a replacement.
We also have such a devoted group that they back one another up. If something happens that a volunteer needs to cancel on relatively short notice, another volunteer is always willing to pitch in, usually aware that that same thing might happen to them someday.
Right, right.
We, because we're a crisis program, of course, we need to staff this program around the clock with volunteers. So many of our working people take evening shifts and weekend shifts. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with volunteer coverage is difficult to do, but because people care, we are able to find them there when we need them.
With so much in the news about abuse and neglect of children these days, what do you think is the goal and the hopes for the crisis nurseries in the future?
Well, of course, our main goal is to have enough shelter homes to be able to place every family and every child that calls. And I can't say in all honesty that we can do that now. We
Right.
did turn away a large number of children last year. That makes us very sad. The homes we have are devoted and give very responsibly of their time, but we do need more homes. We need more places to put the children. I also know that there are people out there who could use their service who are afraid to call.
Right.
And I understand how difficult it is to call and ask that kind of help, but I would hope that we will have enough of a reputation of trust within the community and for the people who might need to call, that they will be able to call and know that they will meet with a program that is not going to judge them
Right.
or the deficits that they're feeling that time, but instead will try to support them and make their life a better experience. So our main goal is to be able to reach the people who should call for our services and to reach the homes who could help us provide that service and get a very happy medium between the two.
Okay. For those watching right now, what would you like to tell them as far as where they can contact and how they can get involved with this great program?
Well, we have two numbers. If anybody cannot remember numbers and you have to look it up in your yellow pages, just remember Children's Home Society, Crisis Nurseries. There's an administrative number, 646-6393, which is open 9 to 5 for people wishing to volunteer their time. They can contact either one of us. And there's a crisis number, 641-1300, and somebody always answers that number.
Okay. We'll be having that information up on a CG page after the program for all of you who are interested in volunteering. It is a very worthwhile program from what I've seen of it, and I know they could use all the help they can get. I'd like to thank you both for coming on the show today. I hope that it's enlightened some people about what goes on there, and maybe it'll help some children from getting abused, or just give some parents some time to get their heads together and things like that. Thank you for coming, and good luck with the Children's Home Society Crisis Nurseries. This has been Community Close-Up. Until next time, goodbye and good day.